What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel, Connor on Chain. So this video today is going to be a full update on robotics and the robotics narrative, because in crypto at the current moment, we've seen a ton of different narratives that I've personally been bullish on that haven't really been a thing, starting to get a lot of traction. And it seems like at the moment, robotics is the one narrative within crypto that I feel still has not fully had its moment in time yet. And I want to cover a bunch more about it. Give you guys like a project or two that I'm still looking at, I'm still bullish on. And we'll cover a bunch of stuff that I think is very important to be watching. So we got Dylan Bain. He is someone from Masari. He's been very bullish on, DEP AI, or decentralized physical AI, which is like the well, I just said it, but it's like the robotics narrative, basically. Nearly every VC in crypto wants robotics exposure, yet there's still only a handful of opportunities in both private and public tokens. Question is whether founders thinks robotics is too early or just too difficult. And crypto is famous for chasing ideas long before they are viable. Correct. The ability to prematurely TGE and cash out lowers the resistance to build things that will not work for years. If that logic held, robotics should already be flooded with attempts. So bottom line, he talks about robotics a little bit, just kind of questioning, whether it's too early or not. Lots of different things. I thought it was a pretty interesting post. You guys can read that as well. But it's why I'm bullish on the few serious teams at the intersection of robotics and crypto. The other part of it, right, is there's only a handful, and I mean a legitimate handful, of projects in crypto right now that are truly focusing in some way, shape, or form on robotics, and that are legitimate teams aiming to build legitimate products or services around robotics. Everything else, I think, is low key a scam. There's very much so only a few. And so, something that you guys need to understand about robotics too is that there are many different aspects and key components of this narrative. It is not just cut and dry, oh, you got a robot and then the software. There are so many tiny components with each part, and I'm going to cover this stuff here. And then we'll get actually very in depth. I'm not going to cover 10 minutes of definitions here, but you can just type this into Google, key components of robotics. And so these are a bunch of the simple components. And so before I even start though, within crypto here, you cannot expect to have a company like a Tesla or a Figure Robotics or any of these massive, massive companies in Web 2 to just be in crypto. Bottom line, there are no robotics projects that I'm aware of, that have that kind of capital that are trying to build, physical robots. That's obviously a huge component within robotics, but that is not something that is currently in crypto. But the physical side of the robotics is obviously a major, major part of the industry itself. But within crypto, it's actually a lot focused on the software side, and we'll get into that in a second. So here's just a breakdown. Because with robotics, you got sensors. The robot senses, allowing it to gather info about its surroundings, like cameras for vision, pressure sensors for touch, whatever. Actuators, these are the muscles of the robot, converting energy into motion. These are motors, stuff like that. Control system, this is the brain, processing sensor data and sending commands to the actuators. It can range from whatever, logic circuits, sophisticated computer programs, and AI. And I'm trying to make this video somewhat quick. I'm not gonna go into every single detail like that. Then they got power supply, blah blah blah. A lot of physical systems, but within these, you got a control system, which are a lot of different stuff that could be software. Communication systems allows the robot to interact with other devices, enabling data exchange and remote control. A lot of this stuff is physical, but a lot of it is actually software as well. And obviously, software here itself. This includes the algorithms and programs that define the robot's behavior and enable it to perform tasks. So anything within crypto right now is all on the software side. That's kind of why I'm making this distinction. But within robotics itself, like I said, there are so many parts of it, even with the physical side and the software side. And so we got a good article here on robotics stack, and this is from Elke. And what's interesting though is they have a 6 layers of the robotics stack. And to me personally, this is why I'm bringing this up because Elke is of course one of the only robotics projects in crypto that I think is building something way beyond itself. It is incredible what they're working on. Um, but for them, the reason why I'm bringing this up is their stack. This is fully focused on, the kind of software side. They have a very good angle with approaching robotics and crypto. But all of this stuff that they're talking about, from locomotion, the ability to move around the world, either with legs or with wheels manipulation, the ability to move and manipulate objects in the world, um, spatio-semantic perception, the ability to distinguish between different kinds of things and how far away they are, mapping, the ability to remember or know where things are that are not in their immediate field of view, positioning like GPS applications, weaving these capabilities together into task-oriented action. So for their stack here, this is a lot of the software-ish side of things too, which is interesting because I think what Elke is working on with all of their stuff, is they're focused on a couple core structural parts, because something like Elke, they're not going to be working on creating all these, the next major 10,000 robots. I wouldn't expect anyone in crypto to be building that. But that's why I wanted to make that distinction because robotics is it's actually a huge industry, a huge narrative. But I'm saying that because if there are projects claiming to be building robots that don't have any sort of claims to back that up, I would think they're all scams. Everything in robotics is going to be a scam if they're claiming to do anything with physical robots. Unless, again, they have claims for it or visuals, things like that showing it. But they're building a lot to do with their perception. They go in depth with a lot of this. But Elke is very interesting. The truth is that locomotion and manipulation, which rely heavily on perception, are far from being reliable and fast enough to become useful. Without the full stack of 6 capabilities, robots remain fundamentally incapable of embodying AI in the physical world. But as we saw with perception, not all 6 capabilities are needed to provide utility. So they are tackling parts of this, which I think it's incredibly strong. There are not many projects doing anything like this. So what I want to bring up though is a bunch of different, companies or projects rather in crypto. I mean, Elke is one of them, but a bunch of different accounts as well, because we got, some of these, I don't think none of them have tokens, but they are accounts that you should be familiar with or you should know going forward within the robotics narrative here. And what's funny too is I actually get NVIDIA Robotics on live. I see this like almost every day. Every so often when I look up robotics stuff, this is like always live. It's kind of cool. But we've got Open Mind here, creating a world where robots think, learn, and work together. So this, I assume, at some point will have a token, but Open Mind, they actually got a raise by Pantera Capital. They are focusing on robotics. Pretty interesting here. I mean, it seems like a lot of projects too. They have, they have like a robot for their project. Elke does. They have one here too. It's kind of funny. I think it's pretty cool. But Open Mind is I was gonna say a project, but a company project you can check out. Another one too is Reborn. This is a very interesting one because at some point I know that this company will have a token as well. But they are focusing on the software type side of robotics as well. Again, they're not trying to build out all the infrastructure, the physical hardware for a robot. But the open ecosystem for AGI robots. So something, because I remember sitting through a Twitter space with them, and the team seems very smart with what they want to be building. But bottom line, it seems like within robotics right now, in the world of it, it's very hard to actually just use any sort of AI and actually connect it to robots. To get those two things to mesh together is a very strong or hard bottleneck for a lot of robotics teams and companies to actually, put together. But that is kind of what Reborn here is focused on, and they, and I don't know if they want people to know they have a token or not. I remember I have one of their old white papers where it covers their token in depth and stuff, but it seems like they don't. I don't know if they have it anymore. But bottom line, I think it's pretty interesting with what they're building. You guys can, of course, dive more into this. And I think, too, I'm not going to be covering these fully in depth. I just want to bring this stuff to light for everyone. It's like until they really have tokens out, and maybe after their token has, kind of died out for a little bit to where I think it's a good entry, or if it kind of stealth launches and it's at a point where it would be a coin out that I'd want to buy, then I'd go way more in depth. But this is just stuff to be definitely having on your radar. And it seems like, a unit, we got Unity Tree Robotics, like literally supporting them too, which is huge. They have a lot of people behind them. So this is not just like a LARP company either. And they've been building for a long time. So that is Reborn AGI. So we got Frodobots too. So this is one that's been around for a while. But they actually have this here, which I want to cover. BitRobot Network, which is their serious robotics stuff. And if you guys are familiar, they got robots.fun. They got Sam is Moving as well. They're kind of just building like an entire little realm of robotics with stuff within crypto, which is cool. But this to me is going to be huge. So I've heard many times that this is going to be almost like the BitTensor of robotics. And I'm not trying to claim that, whether it's a good thing or bad thing. But, I mean, it seems pretty interesting. So I want to cover a little bit about it. We'll just check their website, cover a couple things. So BitRobot is created to meaningfully advance embodied AI research using crypto incentives, built as a network of subnets, right? Each subnet contributes valuable outputs from compute resources to real-world robot fleets to data sets to embodied AI models across a wide variety of robotic tasks and robotic embodiments from sidewalk robots to humanoids. So BitRobot Network is built with support from Protocol VC, Protocol Labs, Big Brain Holdings, Fabric Ventures, Tioga Capital, Z Prime, blah, 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 and Solana Ventures too as well, which is pretty interesting. So, I mean, that's a little bit about what it is. Like I said, I'm not going to go talk about this for 20 minutes, but they also have their white paper here. What's saying that they go in depth with, kind of how the entire subnet idea works. And it is fairly similar, I would say, to BitTensor in many ways. But I do like what they're building, and same thing. They don't have a token, but if they did, at some point, I wouldn't be surprised to see that end up, kind of taking over. So these do not have a token, but these are very strong projects, I would say, within crypto robotics narrative that you should have on your radar. Another one too is Kodak. So this is actually on Sol. I'm not going to cover this fully today, but they do have a token out on Solana. Initially, though, I thought this was a LARP or a scam. Still very hard for me to tell, but this to me looks like one of the only decent Solana-based robotics coin. Very high risk. I'm not even pulling up the chart for this because this is not to call this, not to talk about it like that. But you guys can also check this one out as well. Just wanted to bring this stuff up because for me within robotics, it's like I'm not looking for anything, more degen plays on it. I'm very specific with the robotics projects that I'm looking at. And I want to find some real true gems because I know there will only be, like I said earlier, a legitimate handful of solid robotics projects that even come through. I mean, obviously another one too is Peak, which is, I think Peak fundamentally itself is very strong too. But, outside of like the couple that I do like personally and potentially some of the upcoming ones, that's why I'm really bullish on robotics. I think their ChatGPT moment should be coming sooner than later at some point. And you never know. It's like maybe this narrative right now, it could still be too early in the market. Maybe we do need to see robotics mature a bit. Maybe we need that ChatGPT moment to hit, or for Tesla or one of the major robotics brands to drop all of their first, publicly live robots for people to buy and get them in their homes, Could be anything like that. And it's like eventually once that kind of starts, where people finally start realizing in their head, like, yo, robotics is not just like a thing you see in movies, it's actually happening today. That's when I think this narrative will start to really pick up. So, again, it still might be some time from now, but at some point, I know for a fact this will pick up. And the fact that there are only a handful, say the 15th time, handful of legitimate projects building anything in this space, I think it's going to be very easy to pinpoint which projects will actually end up running and doing very well, very long term. And again, the ones I mentioned do not have tokens, aside from that Kodak coin. But these are ones you definitely should have on your radar. So that's what I wanted to talk about today, guys. I appreciate it, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks.